What's up and welcome to the channel. My name is Headshot and thank you guys for joining us. Today we have one of our Patreon selected firearms, the M1 Garand. This one barely edged out the FAL in one of our recent posts, and this is the one those guys wanted to see, so that's why we have this particular model on the table ready to go. Let's go ahead and get right into it because I feel like it's going to be a pretty long video and we want to go ahead and get started. If you're watching a video like this, you're probably into surplus and old rifles and guns and things like that, so make sure you check out Sportsman's Guide. You have 20 bucks just sitting out there. Spend 100 bucks or more, get 20 bucks off with our discount code at Sportsman's Guide. Such an awesome company and supporting you guys in a huge way. So let's go ahead and get started with the M1 Garand, the gun that helped us win World War II. It's hard to believe that a gun like this, coming in at 9.5 pounds, 43.5 inches long, and a 24-inch barrel, helped us win a war. Because you look at it now compared to other guns like the AK-47, all right, about half of the weight, well, not quite half, but 6-7 pound gun, light, 30 round magazines, and you look at something like this right now today and it looks kind of cumbersome, but believe it or not, 75 years ago that gun helped us win World War II. So it is pretty neat to see the progression of firearms in the past 75 years. All right, and that progression, I mean, started with this rifle. You got to think at that time most countries were carrying 5 or maybe even 10 round bolt action rifles. So to have an 8 round semi-automatic gun at that time was absolutely huge. So what about the features here really quick? You have a gas operated system here, okay? And it was originally known as the gas trap. Gas was actually trapped up here, and they had some issues with it. There was a bunch of redesigns. I mean, the whole design started in the late 20s, and it wasn't until the late 30s, 1937, I believe, when it was actually accepted. And they had issues all the way up until 1940 when they finally hashed those issues out. And you got to think, this gun was up against designs by John Browning, Colt, Peterson, which was probably the biggest competitor to this, the Peterson rifle. So it had some stiff competition, man, but eventually ended up edging all of the other ones out. What you see here, this is from what I know, this is a 1956 model. So after Korea, after World War II, may have seen some action because, and I'll show you some up closes, because this gun is just a little bit too heavy, a little bit too big to be thrown around like we do the other guns. But it's got a 1965 barrel, so at some point it was re-arsenaled, and then the CMP got a hold of it, and from what I know, they sold it back in 2014. All right, you can see their CMP logo right there. This is a brand new walnut stock, at least brand new at the time. It has had some use since then. So you have just like most of these guns, you have some re-arsenal parts with some original parts. And this is a very late serial number, and like I said, I dated it to 1956, very close to the end of 1956. Serial number 5,899,763. More features on the gun. Now this is something I added. This is like the sniper type of cheek rest that I put on here. And this is obviously a reproduction sling. These slings, these khaki color slings, were mainly used during the Korean War. So it kind of lends to that Korean War era M1 Garand, okay? But brand new walnut stock. You can see you have a little opening in the back there. So if they were to put any kind of oil bottles or anything like that, they had an access port right there. Rear aperture sight. Of course, again, we'll show you guys close-ups, but you can change that for elevation and windage. I don't want to mess too much with this because we actually got this thing sighted in pretty good, but windage and elevation right there. Of course, you have your bolt right here, all right, with your op rod and everything. Internal magazine, okay. I'm going to lean this up. Right there's your internal magazine, okay? And then your end block clip goes in there. I'll show you a little bit more about that here later. And then you also have a rotating bolt in this gun. Make sure I don't smash my fingers because that's something I actually have not done since I've had this gun. But what you can see here, All right, gas is pushed back down the tube. Op rod comes back. There's a long stroke piston in here. Acts on that, and the bolt rotates just like that. And this actually eliminated the need for any kind of lubricated ammunition. One of the early issues with semi-autos was extraction. You have the round, which is sweltering up, and with the rotating bolt, it was able to rotate and pull that round right out of there and make sure that it was reliable, okay? Going to the trigger guard, there's a couple different designs. This one you see right here, you have your safety right there. Push it forward, it's on fire. Bring it back, it's on safe. All right, there's another model. And I forget what that model, what its purpose was. If you know, leave us a comment down below. But they made attachments for these things. So during the Korean War, they had the winter trigger, which hooked up underneath the trigger guard, and if you had a glove on or something like that, you could still pull the trigger. So a couple different little things that you could add to the rifle, of course, okay? So overall, the gun is heavy. Again, it's cumbersome, but very cool and a very awesome rifle. And once we get to the shooting, I'll really show you how it did out there. All right, so with as many of these that were made, the bulk of these rifles were made in World War II, okay? But once Korea came around, we realized that we needed more of these rifles and more companies to make them. Total, you had in World War II, you had Springfield and Winchester exclusively making the rifles. And then during Korea, you had Springfield, Harrington and Richardson, and IHC making the rifles. And it's in the neighborhood of up around 6 million. Now, what's crazy is when they first started making these rifles, they were making about 10 a day. Then it moved to 100 a day. And then by the end of 1941, it was 600 a day that they were making of these things. So very impressive. And it wasn't even the most produced small arm in the on the American side in World War II. That nod would go to the M1 carbine that you see up there. All right, so a little fun fact there. And before we get too deep into this, if you like reviews like this or what we do on the channel, consider supporting us on Patreon. Our Patreon of the week is Todd C., brand new member and a serious SHOT member at that. So we really want to thank Todd and welcome him to the SHOT team. Very awesome of you guys. And we're 50 patrons strong. So if you want to help us reach that goal of 100 and also support the channel, link down below for you guys, okay? Let's do the breakdown, all right? It's really not that bad. So what you're going to do, and I'm going to try to make this look as easy as it really is, okay? Because it's not bad at all. I like to get something in here to kind of pull up on because this new wood stock is really tight, okay? So what we're going to do, you're going to pull it up like that. You're going to pull the trigger guard assembly out. Bottom of the magazine well, of course. Okay, you can see your trigger assembly right there. Hammer, all of that good stuff. And the easiest way I found with this particular one anyways is just kind of tap. It's actually easier on the, well, it's easier if you do it the right way, and then also if you do it on the carpet, but we're going to do it just like that. And it just separates from the bottom like that right there. Okay, so give you kind of a better look. All right, you have your op rod right here. It's connected to your piston. You can see your gas tube right there. Bayonet lug. All right, swing swivel right there. Your gas tube, this is where your port is. Okay, so it pushes that gas down against that piston and moves that bolt back just like that. Okay, you can see this one looks like it's been Parkerized at one point. And then, of course, again, we'll get you some close-ups, but you can see the stamp on the barrel, Springfield Armory, 1965. Okay, so at one point the barrel was changed out, which is fine for us today because we want to actually shoot this. I had an option of this one. In this area, I had, you know, from the places that I go to, I had about 5 options. There were some during World War II, some during this time. One of them even had a 5-digit serial number. And I am not kidding. it was more expensive, much more expensive than this one. I paid right at $1,000, but 5-digit serial number, but they were all shot out. I mean, this was the best one, and you know, look, I can't buy a gun that's shot out because then I can't review it for you guys properly. So I had to go with the one that had the best barrel rifling and all of that good stuff. But literally, some of those rifles, you could stick it down and the casing was touching the inside of the barrel. That's how shot out they were. So sometimes you gotta. Of course, it'd be cool to have a World War II rifle, is what I'm saying. But sometimes you got to take what you can get, and this was definitely the cleanest option. And you can see the wood stock and everything is still in really good shape. Overall, the gun is really simple to break down and clean. You know, of course, back then they were using corrosive ammo in these things too, so that's why almost every single one of them got a brand new barrel. Okay, putting them back together. All right, this one's actually date stamped to July 23rd of, looks like 2015. So maybe I was wrong whenever the CMP, they sent me an email and told me it was sold around the end of 14 or 15. So it's got to be 15 then. But either way, brand new walnut stock. I mean, some people don't like that. If I was collecting a World War II rifle, obviously I wouldn't want a reproduction stock, but for what we're doing here, it actually worked out perfect. All right, I'm going to turn this around here. You can see your barrel band here. It's going to butt up. Do it like that. It's going to butt up right in here. And the whole assembly is going to drop down like that. And then your trigger group. See how that just locks into place? And that's all you need. All right, one little cool thing I wanted to show you. Whenever you drop the hammer, all right, you can see how that puts tension on the bottom of the trigger guard. And when you pull up and you're taking this thing apart, you're locking that trigger in place. Okay. So what you do, drop it on in just like that. Push it down with some force. Lock it in place and you're good to go. One thing I noticed with the reproduction sling, it does come off of the hook kind of easily there. But otherwise, that's how you break it down. Let's take you guys to the range. Let's show you how it's shot with the precision targets that we used. And then when we come back, we'll talk about pros and cons. We'll show you the trigger and our overall opinion on the M1 Garand from a new perspective and what kind of uses I think this gun would serve well in today. We'll see you guys in a minute. hitting that little one. So I gotta say, for a gun that's been around this long, at least the original bolt and all the parts, all the metal parts, this gun was almost accurate exactly how I got it. Now, obviously, somebody shot it before I got my hands on it. It was probably already dialed in, but I really did not have to do a lot with this gun for it to be just spot on. And what's crazy is with that rear aperture sight, the front protected sight, that sight picture is just so great. When we were shooting the precision targets, I would take this or even the M1 carbine over the Mosin or even the AK at distance shooting. Now, keep in mind, we are restricted to under 100 yards here, okay? This gun can reach out distances much farther than that, but with what we got, under 100 yards, this gun is fantastic. Of course, it's heavy. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but it is just awesome at the range. Okay, fun time. It's really cool because my oldest son, young shot, he has gotten into this so much more since we got into World War II guns. You know, he sees them in the video games that we play, and it's cool introducing him to the real thing because it gets him more excited about this stuff. And really, he wanted to just see the ping. I mean, that's what and we noticed with some of the M blocks that some of them would ping louder than others. Some of them you really couldn't hear at all, but just a very cool experience to share with him. So let's go ahead and try the trigger out here really quick. It really does not feel too heavy at all. 6 pounds, 2 ounces. Let's try it one more time. 6 pounds, 9 ounces. And we got 6.2 on the first one. All right, so trigger is not bad. I'll see if I can at least show you what it looks like. All right, a little bit of take up there. And it breaks. Kind of pull on it like an AK there. Reset, and it breaks. All right. Very respectable trigger, something you would expect out of a true military gun. And let's be honest, this really is the last truly military issued gun that we as civilians can own without modification. Okay, because after this, it went to the M14. M14 was fully automatic or semi-automatic. And of course, in the States, we can't own those unless you have special licensing and a lot of money. Okay, so it is really cool having at least, and this one probably was never issued. I don't really know, but even if it wasn't, just having, you know, something that those guys actually carried into combat is really cool to me. Okay, so let's talk about the M block clips really quick, and then we'll go to pros and cons. So what I got is I got this. I'm gonna butcher this. A Longapo Outfitters M block clip carrier. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You can carry 12 M blocks in this thing, and it made it really quick, really easy to pull your clip out and load up a new round. Now let me show you how to load this, and I'm going to keep it on safe, point in a safe direction, and all that good stuff. Of course, don't want to shoot Mrs. Headshot, but I'm going to put it on safe. Recharge it here really quick. And this is really easy. It looks harder than what it is, but it's really not that bad at all. One thing you want to make sure of right away is you don't do that. Okay? It's going to, see that? The bolt can hold on the back of the magazine well, and you can get fooled into thinking this is all the way back, but it's not. So what you want to make sure is that you pull it all the way back where you can't see the face of the bolt. Take the M block clip, take the palm of your hand. The palm of your hand is going to sit on the op rod just like that, or on the charging handle, I should say. And you're going to hold that position, push straight down, wait till it clicks, and get the heck out of there. Now, what I noticed with this gun is each and every time, I got to push it in the battery just like that, which isn't a big deal. And then if we're going to unload this, okay, you're thinking, well, I got to shoot all these rounds to get it out. No, you don't. Pull back, get the round out. Keep the palm of your hand over this and push up on this little button right here. And you can pop the clip out. Okay, so it's not as cumbersome as it looks. You know, you would think that you got to do all this kind of funky stuff just to get the clip out, but you don't. Now, loading these things can be a little bit tricky, and if I can find that round, I'll show you. All right, so I'm going to show you this here really quick. It's really pretty simple, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to put the rounds in there.
I'm going to zoom in.
I could probably make this into a separate video. I might do that in case somebody doesn't want to watch the whole review. But what you're going to do is you're just going to stagger them in there, and you just want to make sure that the rounds are on the inside of this right here, okay? And honestly, the easiest way I found to do this is I'll push up from the top like that, and I'll just kind of add them in there as I go along. It's easier once you get two just like that, and then you're just going to stagger them in there. Now, this is not the most ideal way, of course, in our day of loading a magazine. And then, of course, you do want to make sure that they're pushed all the way down. It's not the most convenient way to load a magazine, but back then, you know, they thought that box magazines, you know, detachable magazines, even fixed magazines, would get in the way. All right, so that's why John Garand designed this the way he did. And then you push that last round down in there, make sure they're all seated fully, and you're good. And this little M-block clip carrier made it very easy to carry my extra mags and do some reloading, okay? So shooting the gun, it's kind of nostalgic, but it also was an awesome shooter, even after all these years, okay? So we showed you all that. The gun shoots great. Now, the weight of the gun, when you're freehanding it, it's quite a bit, okay? It is very heavy, and it's funny. I went from shooting this, and then I started shooting the Mosin a little bit, and the Mosin feels so much lighter in the hand compared to this, okay? So shooting this from a rest, probably going to be the best way, but you can shoot it freehand, which we did quite a bit. And we were using, as far as the rest, we were using the foam action Target Sports, and we're still trying to get those worked out and set up the way we need them. There's some different ways that you can use those, but for the most part, they worked out okay. We just got to use a little bit different approach the next time we take those out. All right, and of course, we're looking at this through a new lens, but we're going to talk about pros and cons here really quick. First pro, this is the gun that helped us win World War II. You got to respect it for that. It's just an awesome nostalgia thing with this gun, knowing that. And again, this is the last truly military issued rifle that we can have as civilians without having a bunch of crazy licenses and a crazy amount of money too. And speaking of money, these things can still be had for a decent price. Of course, the CMP offers them all the time, so you can get your hands on them. Super accurate. Again, we're inside of 100 yards, but I felt like I could really hit anything. The sight picture on this gun is fantastic. I love the Aperture sight, and they work really well. You can adjust them easily, straight, right there from the rear. Love that about the gun. All wood and metal, and it just has an awesome but different kind of feel to it, especially compared to today's firearms. Okay, there's something about this gun when you pick it up, you're like, man, this is the gun that was on the beaches of Normandy. Not this gun, but you know what I'm saying. There's something very cool about that. And newer guns, they excite me too, but they just don't have that kind of wow and cool factor, and give you a whole lot to talk about, because you have no idea if those guns can really withstand a battle or anything like that. Some of them you can, but there's a lot of guns that I wouldn't take in a battle that we can buy on the market today as Americans. But this gun went into battle, and it did its part, and it can take the abuse. So that is very cool. Another thing, the ammo is readily available. .30-06 caliber, very popular for hunting. You can get that ammunition, although it is expensive. You can get it. All right, so the cool factor is definitely up there, and there's a gun for pretty much everybody. If you want a shooter's grade, or you want a collector's grade, or you want a sniper model, or you can spend as little or as much money as you want on one of these. And if you want to get one from each of the companies that made one, you can do that. So a lot of collectability and just a cool factor that you don't find with a lot of today's guns, okay? Of course, there are some cons as well. This gun is heavy, and it is cumbersome when you hold it in your hand and you're shooting an entire clip. I can say that in this video. When you're shooting a whole clip, especially freehand, it is cumbersome. It's heavy, okay? I mean, that's just what it is. It's wood and steel. Loading it is, by today's standards, back then it was awesome. Semi-automatic, 8 rounds on tap, ready to go. Today, it is cumbersome. It is more difficult, of course, than having even like the M1 carbine that you see right there, detachable magazine. We found out really quickly that detachable magazines they don't get in the way. They make life a lot easier, okay? So heavy, and really, speaking of price here really quick, you can spend as little or as much as you want, but still, I mean, these things, the cheapest ones I seen were like $700, so that's nothing to sneeze at. It's a lot of money to spend on a rifle like this, but again, I think there are definitely more pros than cons. Reliable, all of that good stuff. All right, and what about uses in 2019? And this is where we're going to end this. Definitely competition or collectability. Collectability probably being number one. If you get a gun like this with a good barrel, you can take it to the range. You can shoot competitions with it. They make M-block clips that will hold 2 or 5 rounds. So if you want to go hunting with this gun, you can do that as long as you follow your state's legal guidelines for hunting. So there's a lot of uses. I would not say home defense, way too heavy, not easy to attach any kind of optic or anything like that. You really can't do that on these guns. With the sniper models you can. They're drilled and tapped, but home defense, no, okay? But hunting and things like that, collectability, of course. This gun is awesome, all right? And that is a brand new perspective on this firearm. I think this gun still, 75 years later, is just badass, all right? So I, of course, want to know what you guys think about the M1 Garand. Do you think it's held up well over time? I personally think, even with all its nuances, it's held up very well. So leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.